I found a lace-wrapped diary hidden in the attic. It knew my name, but its pages broke my heart for my daughter. The diary was wrapped in lace. Not mine, not from my hands, but it knew my name. It was tucked behind the old sewing cabinet, beneath scraps of flannel and forgotten thread. I found it when I was looking for a button. Funny how something so small can open a door you never meant to walk through. The pages smelled like lilacs, and ink left out too long. I hadn't said her name out loud in 19 years. Not since the day she left without goodbye. But there it was, page after page, in her voice, to me. And that's when I knew. The story I told myself about her wasn't the whole story. Not even close. Before Sophie slipped away, Loretta held her like she might break. And maybe, in trying to keep her close, she cracked the space between them. Sophie was everything after her father passed. Just 16 when they buried him under the willow tree behind the church. She wore a plain black dress, didn't cry, just stood there, holding Loretta's hand, fingers cold and stiff like a porcelain doll. At first, they grew even closer. They would sit on the porch together with hot cocoa and read mystery novels aloud. Sophie always guessed the ending halfway through. She had her father's cleverness and Loretta's stubborn eyes. But grief is a strange tide. It doesn't always come in waves. Sometimes it seeps in, like water through an old ceiling. You don't see the damage until the mold is already there. In college, Sophie began to pull away. Phone calls got shorter. Texts came fewer and farther between. One day, Loretta sent her a care package, homemade peach jam, a photo of them from the county fair, and a note that read, "Come home when your heart feels heavy. There's still a place for you." It came back unopened, stamped, "Return to sender." Loretta stood at the mailbox for what felt like an hour, holding the package like it might still be warm. Then came silence. Not a fight, not a slammed door, just absence. At first, she thought Sophie was busy. Midterms, internships, some boyfriend maybe. But weeks became months, and months stretched into years. She left voicemails, gentle ones. "Hey baby, just wondering if you're okay. I made your favorite stew tonight. Remember when you used to dunk the cornbread in it until it disappeared? I miss you." No reply. Then one day, she dialed the number out of habit. It didn't even ring. "This number has been disconnected or is no longer in service." That night, Loretta sat at the kitchen table, folding one of Sophie's old t-shirts. It still smelled faintly of lavender softener. She didn't cry, not out loud. People in town whispered. Maybe Sophie couldn't take the pressure. Her mama always did have a way of being too much. Loretta heard them, but she said nothing. She kept sweeping her front porch every morning, baking peach cobbler on holidays, and setting 2 plates even when there was only 1 fork ever used. The hardest betrayal isn't always in the yelling. It's in the empty room that was never closed, but never walked back into. Loretta didn't stop living, but something in her stopped moving. Mornings still came. Tea in the chipped yellow mug Sophie once painted. A house too clean, too still. Like no one dared return. She kept Sophie's room just the way it was. Light green walls, a faded poster of a ballet recital, a bookshelf with teenage mysteries, and a diary with a broken lock. Sometimes she swore she still heard giggles. Sophie pretending to host a tea party, pouring air into plastic cups and calling her Madame Loretta. Some days, she'd sit on the edge of that bed and run her hand over the comforter, smoothing wrinkles that hadn't been made. On Sundays, she still baked cobbler, the oven warming an emptiness she never named. Once a year, on Sophie's birthday, she lit a candle. No cake, just a flicker. Then let it go out, quietly. She stopped answering calls from friends, declined invitations gently. "I'm just not up for it tonight, sweetheart. Maybe next week." Weeks turned into seasons. Neighbors stopped asking. Somewhere along the line, Loretta began to feel more like a shadow inside her home than the woman who had once danced barefoot on the kitchen floor. One day, while rearranging the silverware drawer, she found an old spoon, a small one, with the name Sophie etched into the handle. She remembered buying it at a craft fair. Sophie was 4. She'd insisted on having her own spoon for dessert. Loretta held it in her hand for a long time. And then, without thinking, she slid it back into the drawer. Third slot from the left, as if Sophie might need it someday. When the real estate agent came by, Loretta surprised herself. She said yes. Yes, she was ready to sell. Not because she wanted to let go, but because holding on had started to ache in ways even Peach Cobbler couldn't comfort. Packing was slow. She lingered over everything, even the broken lamp, even the grocery list still magneted to the fridge. Each item felt like a memory refusing to be folded. She thought she had made peace, that she had accepted the silence, until she opened that attic door, until she saw the music box and the little journal wedged beneath it, waiting, like a voice that had been whispering all these years, just out of reach. Loretta sat back on her heels. The attic air was dry, but her hands felt damp. The little diary in her lap was soft around the corners, as if it had been held many times before. She ran her fingers along the edge, slow, like tracing the seam of something fragile. The paper smelled faintly of old perfume and dust. She opened to the first page again, even though she had already read it. "If you're reading this, Mama, it means I was braver than I thought." The handwriting tilted forward. Sophie always wrote like that. Even in 2nd grade, her letters leaned, eager to arrive. Loretta turned the next page. "I never hated you. I need you to know that first." She stopped there, let the words rest in her chest. For 19 years, she had believed something simple, that Sophie left because she couldn't bear to stay, that Loretta had pushed too hard, held too tight, spoken too much. She believed her daughter had folded the chapter closed, turned the page, and never looked back. But now, the pages were speaking. She read on. "You always seemed so sure of everything. I was the opposite. You were strong and certain. I was scared most of the time, and that scared me more, because I thought if you ever saw it, you'd think I was weak. So I tried to be strong like you, but I couldn't keep it up." Loretta could almost hear her daughter's voice in those words. Not the woman's voice, but the little girl's. The one that used to hide under the dining room table with a flashlight and a blanket, whispering made-up stories to her stuffed rabbit. She kept reading. "After Dad died, I didn't know how to grieve. You just kept going. You cooked. You cleaned. You made sure I got to school. I wanted to scream, to cry, to break something. But you were quiet, like always. And I thought, maybe that's how I should be too." Loretta let her fingers fall to her lap. She remembered those days, the way Sophie would slam the door after school, how she started wearing headphones at dinner, how Loretta would wake in the middle of the night and check Sophie's room, only to find her curled up facing the wall, still dressed. And Loretta, thinking she was doing the right thing, gave space. She gave silence. But silence, now she saw, had been mistaken for distance. She turned to the next page. The handwriting looked rushed. "I flew home for a friend's wedding. I didn't plan to stop by. But the plane landed early, and something pulled me. I parked down the street, just walked in. The door still creaked the same way. I didn't stay long, just long enough to remember. I found the music box, left this journal there. I don't know if I wanted you to find it, or if I was afraid you would. Loretta inhaled. So Sophie had come back. That was real. The house had welcomed her in silence. And Loretta had missed it. She had been at church that weekend, an out-of-town wedding, gone for just 2 days. And while she was away, her daughter had returned. Her daughter had walked barefoot through the halls, had touched the old wood, had left this part of herself behind. She closed her eyes. It was too much to hold at once. She flipped to the final page. There, the ink was softer. A different pen, purple. A child's pen, maybe. Her name is Sadie. She has your stubborn chin and your quiet way of looking at the world before speaking. I think you'd like her. She asks questions I don't always know how to answer. But you would. You always did. There was a small smudge at the bottom. A fingerprint, maybe. Loretta pressed her thumb beside it, gently. Then came the last sentence. It was not long, not poetic, but it struck her like thunder on a still pond. If you can forgive me, maybe Sadie can know where she comes from. Maybe she can hear the stories I never told her. Maybe she can learn them from you. Loretta sat still. No tears. Not yet. Just that heavy pause the heart takes when it realizes it's been wrong about something for far too long. She hadn't been abandoned. She had been misunderstood. And perhaps misunderstood in return. The silence between her and Sophie wasn't empty. It was crowded, with all the things they hadn't known how to say. And now, here was this invitation. Not a demand, not a plea, but a quiet door creaking open. Loretta picked up the music box again. She turned the tiny metal key on its side. It resisted at first, then gave way with a soft click. The tune began to play, faint, almost broken. Ave Maria, the song Sophie had loved most, the one Loretta used to hum when brushing her daughter's hair at night. She listened, eyes closed, and in her mind, she saw a girl, 10 years old, spinning in the living room with bare feet and a paper crown, laughing just once before the music drowned it out. When the song ended, Loretta opened her eyes. She didn't feel angry. She didn't feel bitter. She felt something shift, like a bird that had sat still too long, remembering it had wings. The journal was still open in her lap. She turned it over and looked at the back cover. There, in small print, was something she had missed before. An address, scribbled in a hurry, different ink. Not an old address, not the university, not the one she had memorized and mailed letters to, over and over all those years ago. A newer one, in Oregon. It might not still be valid, but it was something. A thread. And sometimes all you need to begin again is a thread. Loretta didn't call, didn't write long letters, didn't ask why. She just sat at the kitchen table the next morning, the little diary in her hands, the music box beside her. Outside, the wind moved through the lilacs like someone humming. She opened her old sewing box and pulled out a square of lavender fabric, soft, worn, from one of Sophie's childhood dresses. She wrapped the diary in it, careful, like swaddling a newborn. Then slipped in a photograph. Sophie at age 10, eyes shut tight, blowing out birthday candles. Loretta's hand rested on her shoulder in the background. She paused before sealing the envelope. The address Sophie had written at the back of the journal was still there. Oregon, a street Loretta had never heard of. It might not be current, but it was something, a thread worth following. She took out a blank note card, wrote only one line. Her pen hovered, just for a second. Then, she wrote, "You don't have to come back, but if you ever send Sadie, I will tell her everything you were too young to say." No signature, no return address, just truth, tucked into cotton and paper. At the post office, Loretta stood in line behind a man mailing business flyers. She held the padded envelope to her chest like a keepsake she wasn't quite ready to let go. When it was her turn, she handed it over gently. "No rush delivery," she told the clerk. "Let it take its time." Back home, she didn't wait by the window, didn't pace the hallway. She watered her violets, fed the birds, set only one plate at dinner, and for the first time in years, she did not feel alone. It was a Tuesday morning when she heard the knock. Not a loud one, just 3 soft taps. Loretta had just watered the lilies. Her gloves still smelled of soil and rosemary. She opened the gate slowly. There, standing under the arch of honeysuckle vines, was a girl. 17, maybe 18. Brown waves falling past her shoulders. Freckles like someone had kissed her face through a lace curtain. In her arms, the music box. The same one Loretta had wrapped the journal in. "Hi," the girl said, shifting her weight. You don't know me. I'm Sadie." Loretta didn't speak. Not yet. Sadie looked down, her voice smaller now. "Mom didn't give me your phone, just said, if she's still in that yellow house with the lilacs, she'll answer the door. I didn't even know if you'd be home, but something told me, come." Loretta opened the gate. No questions, no explanations, just the sound of the latch clicking back. In the kitchen, Loretta poured tea into blue china cups. The ones with the tiny roses Sophie used to trace with her fingertip. Sadie sat at the table. Her hands rested on the music box, not opening it, just feeling the cool shell beneath her palms. "She told me you used to hum this," Sadie said, turning the key slowly. Ave Maria filled the quiet. The notes were softer now, a little cracked, but they still found their way to the corners of the room. "Do you remember what came next?" Sadie asked. Loretta nodded. "After that, I'd tell a story. One she hadn't heard before. Always made up on the spot. Always ended with a girl finding her way home." Sadie smiled. "Can you tell me one?" Loretta looked out the window. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, dancing on the wooden floor. She turned back to Sadie. "I think I have one left in me." Loretta never finished the diary. She didn't need to. Some pages are meant to remain open. Some stories are meant to be passed down out loud. So, she started again. Not with ink, but with voice. With the gentle winding of a music box. And a granddaughter who listened, wide-eyed, as if the past could still reach her. Some stories never get written, but maybe they were always waiting for the right ears. You don't need to say it all at once, love. Just start with a name or a memory. I'm here. We listen soft around here. If you've ever had a daughter go quiet or been one yourself, you're not alone, sweetheart.